Oh, fuck. Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight is a solid game, but not much more than that. Hosted as a prequel to its 3 previous titles, it's a game built in a Metroidvania fashion, and while it is not totally linear, it is rather short. Momodora is just not an incredible game by any standards. It stands on its own, but is easily overshadowed by others. It's an action platformer with a simple combat system, minor power-up system, a very light exploration theme, and very pretty pixel art. The plot of the game isn't readily explained to the player at the start, but you gather that the world is being slowly infected by some kind of malign curse that's infecting everything in some manner. It seems to be causing evil monsters and spirits to rise and terrorize everyone in sight. You take the role of a priest belonging to the Southern Lands, who's been sent to the city of Karst in order to seek the aid of the Queen to help remedy your lands. As you delve further into the city, you shortly discover that things are not what they seem, and that the Queen is at the center of it all. You bump into several other denizens who each have their own little thing to say, but nothing so grand as to reveal the real nature of what's happening. The game handles as a very tight platformer, but nothing so unique to separate it from other games of its kind. When not jumping around, you'll be dealing with enemies, and you have a couple of methods for dealing with them. Your melee is your standard attack, and you unleash it by using a red leaf as your weapon, with the ability to combo it a few times for larger amounts of damage with each hit. You can attack in the air, crouching, the stuff you'd assume. For range, you have a bow and arrow, and while you can just pluck away like normal, you can charge it up to unleash different types of shots, each more powerful than the last. Lastly, you're given the ability to dodge, which provides you with invincibility frames to avoid attacks and pass through enemies, which is utilized in almost all parts of the game. You'll find items along the way, some of which provide an active effect that you get by using it as a consumable, though they are rechargeable, and others which provide supportive passive effects. The enemy diversity is enough. Some just kind of hop around and prove as a nuisance at most, while others are more directly threatening and some are very devious with their methods, like these white-robed lantern carriers who, after they die, their lantern can drop and combust on the ground as a lasting flame. Little imp-like figures who can throw gas bombs at you to poison you. You'll quickly develop different strategies for taking out the foes you encounter, but the cast is no larger than about a dozen enemy types, and with your limitations of a simple melee or range attack, it never proves to be very interesting or gratifying when you slay them. It acts more of a relief that you can just move on afterwards. There are around half a dozen bosses, all who vary in difficulty, but lack any real depth to them that make it interesting. Some shoot bullets at you, some are more heavy with melee, but it usually just boils down to how well you can avoid things and attack back rather than anything else. Bob and weave, that sort of thing. I never got much satisfaction out of any of the fights in particular, and having said that, some of the mechanics for the enemies are just annoying, especially during boss fights. The very first boss fight, you're able to freely touch the boss as much as you like, but all the enemies beforehand damaged you if you came in contact. Bosses also don't follow set attack patterns. Some can literally repeat the same move over and over, which can be very irritating. It's misleading to an annoying amount, and it doesn't get much more hopeful later on. When you reach the Pardoner boss fight, you tell me if on your first time you could sort out her choreography at all. I had a very frustrating moment on the second boss when, after I defeated her, I was presented with an item. I went to the left side of the screen, I saw water, and I thought, oh great, of course they're not going to tell me if water is a hazard or not. Well, I decided to take a dip and... hey, I die. Oh right, my save file was before the boss, I have to do it all over. Well, I do! And then I find out the item I was given isn't there anymore. Did I keep it from last time, perhaps? Nope. As it turns out, you are presented with unique items if you flawlessly defeat some of the bosses, which means if you defeat them without taking any damage. So I was pretty livid at this point that the first time I take out a boss and I get given an item, I thought it would be the norm from here on out, but little do I know it was actually a hidden mechanic I had to look online to understand. Other silly measures crop up, such as when you pick up an item, time doesn't freeze immediately, and enemies can still move around. It was a damn joy picking up this health fragment, only to have several enemies homing in on me and making it impossible for me to even avoid them. To clarify what I mean, imagine if the player flawlessly defeated every boss and didn't even realize that the item he was receiving was a bonus item and he thought it was just the standard reward. He would assume everyone else also obtains that item, and when he goes to talk about the game with others, he realizes, oh, something's amiss. How was I ever going to know how I got that boss item without actually looking up the circumstances surrounding it? It would be nice if the situation was explained better so that there isn't confusion. It's like trying to acquire items in the Souls series. Good fucking luck not looking any of that up. It must seem like an odd nitpick, I know, but the clarity of game mechanics is a very important design topic. I'll probably dedicate a video to that in the future. While there is a story to the game, you're not deliberately told much as you go throughout. Characters will expose some of the happenings the farther you go on, but some of it just seems pointless. You don't get very attached to many of them that you meet because they literally only have a few boxes of text to quickly explain something crucial. Like this gentleman you meet tells you to go ask his master for some assistance because you're gonna need it. So you do, and she gives you a key, and that's it. Don't you guys have anything else to say? They literally could have been replaced with thin air and the key just lying there for you, and it would have had the same effect. And the same happens everywhere else. It seems like someone is going to become important in some manner, but just ends up standing there for no good reason other than to pad out the scene. One or two of them actually do have a story pertaining to them, but even then, they're absurdly short and optional as well, so it's like, fuck, why bother? There's a layer of emotion and curiosity surrounding those you meet and the events around them, but it doesn't go anywhere. And the sad part is that you want it to be deeper. The traitorous knight, the grieving widower, the witches, the former prisoner, they don't ever get elaborated upon, and as such, they're no more than just scenery. It's very depressing in a sense. Which ironically does fit into the whole theme of the game, which is kind of an unexplainable dread that you can feel throughout. Maybe no one really has anything worth to say. As one puts it, everyone's lost all their hope and all care with the world. Maybe they have no more exposition anymore due to that. I don't get the feeling it was designed like this on purpose, however. It feels like there was really supposed to be more going on with the story of the game, but it was just never expanded upon in the end. Instead, it's just you, the few words protagonist on a silent quest that the player isn't sure of. Eerie, yes, but not one you can really relate to or get excited by. The world is interesting, but the adventure you're in isn't. Now, aesthetically, the game is absolutely gorgeous. The artwork, of its graphical fidelity and numerous incorporations of different artistic styles, such as the gas effects, the water reflections, the dynamic between the yet untainted land of the grove compared to the manic bleakness of the city, it all mixes in beautifully together and is insanely pleasing to the eyes. The design of the characters, revealing some to be human, monster, or something else altogether, animations are well drawn and feel super smooth. The distinction between the protagonist and everyone else she meets, she's the outsider and it feels like it. Her clothing and style is so much different compared to everyone else's. It makes it known you're in an alien land with much different intentions than the rest. The music is also top-notch. The exploration themes are creepy, yet also coolly and calming at the same time. It's an uneasy feeling throughout. You never really feel safe, even when people say that you will be. And there's always a sense of anxiety moving forward. Meanwhile, the boss themes are fast and get you feeling pumped for the action ahead. It's a soundtrack worth getting, and can be purchased along with the game should you desire. The sound direction is retro-inspired, most actions all sounding like bleeps and chip sound effects, but with a very modern touch being applied to them. It's distinct and nice sounding at all times. And the first time you hit a bell, you'll feel it for a second. But in the end, all of this just amounts to not a whole lot. I spent a long time trying to sort it out, that there has to be some huge hidden quality to this game that would completely redeem it all for me. But I couldn't find it. Momodora is a fine game, but it's lacking. It doesn't feel like it's all there. It's a game I'd show someone if I wanted to get the point across of, at minimum, this is what all games should be like. But it doesn't go beyond that. I'm not saying it's average, but I can't give a wholehearted recommendation of it either. It has its quirks and little highlights, like when you're presented with the bell that enables you to save, you can hit it with your leaf or pray to it. The fact that you're given an option shows off a unique take on subconscious thinking. The game tells you to hit it from the start, but if you investigate it, you'll realize, oh, I had a choice even though it wasn't presented to me. And that's cute. The ball at the end of the spike pit, it has arrows below it signifying that you should use your bow. Cats can't climb ladders, yet they can swim. Using an item, you have a little fist pump, protagonist idle animations. The charm of the game is there, but nothing else. If you want to look at its game design, it's solid. It's solidly built, and everything works together. It isn't buggy, it's constructed well. But maybe due to its simplicity and little ambition outside of its scope, nothing feels interesting in the end. It's a platformer with a bit of fighting and minor story exposure. It really kinda just carries the quality of a freeware doujin, really what the first few games were about. The developer even said that the games were inspired by others like Cave Story and Mega Man, and you can easily feel that when you play. I want to like this game, but I can't honestly say it's something I reserve a spot for on my shelf. It would just sit there doing nothing for a long time. I can say this much for it at least. If you want a game to introduce someone to gaming, at all, like even as their first ever game, you can pick this one. It's perfect for that. Under a nice moonlit night.